welcome back to the David67 Celtic News YouTube channel. Obviously, a wee bit of a despondent, angry, irate, annoyed Celtic fan like all of us, but trying to be optimistic, positive, and cheerful. And so in this first video of today, going to do a wee review of the transfer window, which was pretty rubbish. All things considered. However, there are positives to be taken from it. Also going to expand a wee bit on the future, a wee bit of philosophy and pontificating, etc. And finishing off with a wee quick preview of our game 12:30 tomorrow at Aberdeen, where hopefully we can get our lead bumped up to 8 points and forge on towards the double. And I genuinely do believe that this Celtic squad, this Celtic team, have more than enough quality in their squad and depth in their squad to win the double over the second half of this season. However, the transfer window was disappointing, all things considered. We should have been really looking to strengthen the squad, add some extra quality in a couple of positions, particularly third striker and left back. I personally would have loved to have seen a new goalkeeper brought in to be phased in over the next few months as Joe Hart gets phased out. Joe Hart's contract, of course, is up at the end of this season, and for a variety of reasons, I fully expect that he'll be moving on. As I'm sure you're all aware, he's currently living in Glasgow, but his family are still living in the normal family home in England, and so this obviously has meant a lot of separation, and I'm sure causing him a lot of stress and pressure as well. And so I fully expect that at the end of this season, Joe Hart will be moving on, much as Brendan Rodgers seems desperate to keep him at the club as the first choice goalkeeper. However, in the transfer window, as you're all aware, we got in Nicholas Coon about halfway through. A lot of us didn't really think we need yet another wide player, given the fact that we had quite a few players in that position. The hope and expectation is Nicholas Coon comes with a reputation of being a player who is skillful, pacey, good at dribbling, and is good at creating chances for teammates. His stats for taking his own chances, shooting at goal, etc., are not up to scratch, but those can be improved with coaching. However, the feeling is that he is a talented player with a lot of skills that will transfer well to Celtic, and that he is a player who can create goals for Kyogo, O, and now Adam Ida, and also provide crosses and passes for fellow wide players such as Maeda and Palma to score from, or the midfielders such as Bernardo, O'Reilly and McGregor. So, all things considered, if Coon works out, as many of the scouts and pundits are saying, this will be a good signing for us in the long run. And in essence, he's taking the place of Mikey Johnson in our usual match day squad, be it on the bench or starting on the right. And I think that Coon is an upgrade on Mikey Johnson. And so, in theory, that's a wee bit of an improvement in the overall team and squad. Adam Ida wasn't really on anybody's list as being a player to come to us. However, he is an international. He's had 2 seasons playing for Norwich in the English Premier League. He has scored 3 international goals when they played Holland, Ireland. With Ireland, Ida apparently had a very good game, managed to beat Virgil van Dijk several times, and so these are good factors. Ida does have a disappointing goals per game ratio. However, as I mentioned in, I think it was yesterday's video, when you cut down the stats and look at shots per goal, his shots per goal ratio is better than Miovski and Shankland, who were two players a lot of fans and pundits were calling to be signed by Celtic in the transfer window. And this season, Kyogo's shots per goal is 5 shots per goal, and Ida's is down at 3.5. Now, admittedly, Kyogo in his first 2 seasons, his shots per goal ratio was quite a lot better than 3.5 per game. However, it does show that Ida, when he's given a good chance, does actually put them away. However, at Norwich, it would appear that he hasn't been given a good quality chance to score from, and thus his goals per game ratio is poor. However, Ida does give us a different sort of forward, taller, bulkier, stronger, not quite as good in the air as I would have hoped for a player of 6'2", 6'3". However, it does give us other options. And again, it may be that Ida's lack of success in the air is down to the quality of crosses from the Norwich wide players, maybe with Palma and Coon, O'Reilly, McGregor, etc. If they're able to deliver the ball in better zones for Ida to attack, it may well be that we have a player similar to those who are that wee bit older, similar to a Pierre van Hooijdonk or Georgie Cadetti, Jan Vingegaard's Hesselink, all of whom were players good on the ground but also good in the air. From our usual squad, we lost David Turnbull. Now, David Turnbull did start the season well, the first 2/3 of the season. Prior to Christmas, he was doing well. Kind of when his contract negotiations stalled and he made it very clear to the club that he wasn't wanting to sign a new contract and wanted away in the January window, it became quite clear that Turnbull kind of stopped really trying for Celtic. His last 5 games, no goals, no assists, no real worthwhile pieces of action, and he also was on the bench 5 times and unused during the period of late November through December and into the games we've so far played in January. So again, the player that we've had in the last 6 weeks or so in terms of Turnbull isn't going to be missed. Qumu, who's been loaned out to St Mirren, was on the bench several times but never played a minute for Celtic, and so we're not losing anything out by loaning him to St Mirren. And indeed, he started well for St Mirren, a couple of good games so far for St Mirren. And it may well be that he comes back at the end of the season, comes back a much more experienced, rounded player who's settled well into Scottish life and has the potential to kick on and be a good player for Celtic in the long run. Similarly, Mikey Johnson is away yet again on loan. Mikey Johnson, again, a player who was typically in our matchday squad, now basically replaced by Coon. Mikey Johnston, apart from really those 2 goals against Dundee on Boxing Day, hasn't really contributed to Celtic at all this season. I think there's been those 2 goals and 1 assist. Otherwise, most of his appearances, games, have been disappointing. Very rarely an impact off the bench apart from the Dundee match, and virtually all his starts ending prematurely with very poor performances. So, again, I don't think we're losing anything out of our matchday squad with Mikey Johnson leaving, and indeed he may come back a more rounded, successful player. Otherwise, I think it is time for Celtic to cut the losses and sell Mikey Johnson on to another club. Marco Tilio It's back to Australian football, where he has been a big star for the last 2 years. And to give Tilio credit, he's also been a full member of the Australian squad when fit for several years. And of course, is currently away with the Australian squad. It may well be that Tilio comes back fully fit as the Australian season runs through to May. And so his season in Australia will be ending roughly the same time as our season is ending in Scotland. And so, all things being equal, hopefully he comes back fully fit, no injuries, and is able to have a full pre-season, which of course he missed this season, missing the first 3 months of pre-season and the season proper. And I think Tilio, from watching all the various different international footage and footage from the Australian League for the last couple of years, I think Tilio is a great player in the making and could be, if all goes well, a big player for Celtic next year. Ideguchi was sold for just under £1 million back to Vissel Kobe in Japan. He, of course, had no real impact on Celtic's squad the last 18 months, and so again is not a player that's going to be missed. Now, a lot of people have been saying on various different fan forums, in the comment section, and on other YouTube channels that we've thrown away the title and we've handed it to Rangers stroke Sevco, stroke the other lot, depending on what you like to call them. I personally don't think, having looked at their transfer window, they've improved their squad one tiny bit. In essence, they replaced Lammers, a forward who couldn't score a goal for Toffee, with yet another forward, Fabio Silva, who throughout his career, despite the fact he was sold for £35 million to Wolves, has struggled to score in any league, hardly scored at all in the English Premier League, scored a few goals in Holland and a few more goals in Belgium, but in none of his various different spells at 4 different clubs has he really been a prolific goal scorer. And around about a quarter to a third of his goals when he was in Holland were from penalty kicks, which of course is very helpful for Rangers, but still, he only scored something like 7 in half a season or so in Holland, and a similar number or slightly more in Belgium. They've signed a very young, inexperienced Colombian winger. This is in essence is to replace their existing winger Sima, who's out for 3 months. The Colombian winger Cortez has struggled to move from Colombia to France, hasn't really settled in his team in France, hardly played for them, and so I think he may well have very similar problems adapting to Scottish life and to the Rangers team. And they've also signed a promising but fairly inexperienced Ivory Coast Olympic squad player from a mid-table team in Denmark. He is primarily a central midfielder, but he is quite small, not strong, is supposed to be versatile. But again, from looking at the highlight reels, scouting tapes, etc., of Cortez and Diomande, the Ivory Coast midfielder, neither looks particularly exciting, prolific, or high-quality player. Our squad was more than strong enough to be the top team in the first half of the season, and I think our squad is just as strong now as it was prior to Christmas and New Year. We've managed to keep hold of all our best players, such as CCV, Abada and O'Reilly, and I think we've got more than enough talent in the squad to win the title and win the double, and I think Coon and Ida will help us along the way. Fully accept that the amount of improvement wasn't as much as I wanted, we wanted, you wanted, or I am almost a million percent certain, as much as the team, Rodgers and the board and the scouting people wanted it to be. Now, these are all my opinions, and I am more than delighted for everybody to have different opinions. These are my opinions, and I am fully aware that a lot of you may well disagree with me, and I'm happy for discussion, debate, as long as it's all kept nice and polite, as it always has been from all the viewers and subscribers and Celtic fans who watch these videos. I think personally it's the same board, it's the same scouting staff, it's the same recruitment staff, pretty much now as it was under Ange Postecoglou. Ange Postecoglou seemed to be able to work much better with the scouting department, the recruitment department, the financial department and the board than Rodgers. There seems to be a disconnect between Rodgers and the scouting and recruitment and the board. That needs to be worked on, as everybody needs to be doing their job. I honestly think that had Keith Garden of Brøndby been made available to us, that we would have paid the £6, £7, £8 million to secure his signature. It became very clear early in the transfer window that Brøndby had decided they weren't going to sell Keith Garden at any price at the midpoint of their season. They're in a three-way battle for the Champions League. And we all know that the next Champions League is going to be quite a money spinner. And so it would appear that Brøndby are going all in to keep their best players at the club, and so that they can maximise their chances of winning the Danish Super League and getting into next year's Champions League. We did the same in terms of not selling CCV, Abada, or O'Reilly. We've kept all our best players at the club. We've also rewarded pretty much all our best players with nice long contracts, which hopefully keeps them happy, keeps them loyal, and also does help in transfer negotiations if a player does become desperate to leave, as may be the case with Matt O'Reilly in the summer. So I think in essence, we should all work together. I know there's a lot of hostility and bad feeling towards the board. My personal feeling is the board are going absolutely nowhere. So the Lawwells, the Nicholsons, the Desmonds, etc., etc., I think they're all here to stay. And personally, I think the best thing that we can do as fans, be it fans watching on TV, fans at the ground, etc., is support the players 100% and cheer them on fanatically at the grounds and support them outside as well. I think the most important thing is to keep the players happy and motivated, which I think Brendan Rodgers has been rather poor at doing this season. I think there are quite a lot of Celtic players who are quite unhappy at the moment. I think Lagerbielke is one of the most obvious examples. I think Lagerbielke's played fine without being great. I don't think he's deserved anywhere near as much criticism as Brendan Rodgers has given him. I think he deserves, as a 23-year-old, an awful lot more support. I think also the way that he's criticised on a very regular basis players such as Greg Taylor, off and on, very critical of players like Palma and Kyogo and Mikey Johnson and others. I don't think that's good for the players in public to be criticised as much as they are. I think players, like all of us, are just human beings and need supported. And from my own personal experience of working for a long time in a variety of different organisations and types of work, people's employees respond an awful lot better to carrots and praise rather than being whacked by a stick, metaphorically, or constant criticism in front of colleagues or in front of the public. And so, in the end, my opinion, again, it's my opinion, I'm fully aware that everybody has the perfect right to their own opinion, and I fully value everybody else's opinion. is that we need to support the players 100%. Celtic Park, away from the ground, away matches, cheer them on from minute 1 until the very end of the half, and then from the start of the second half to the very end of all the added time, and support the players. I think that will help the players play to their best potential, and that has been the case when Celtic Park's been rocking and cheering and all the flashing lights and flags and banners, etc., etc. I think it really does stir the players on to play at their absolute best. And so I think we should do that. I think perfectly fine protesting against the board, outside the ground, banners, etc., perfectly reasonable in the press and by text and letters and etc., etc., voicing your displeasure, your disagreement, and hopefully both Rodgers and the board and the scouting department will be a bit more vocal and explain quite why things haven't worked out at all well in this transfer window. Quite what were the stumbling blocks? Was it simply other clubs refusing to sell their best players like we did? Where we didn't sell our best players no matter how big the offer was from Atletico Madrid or from down south? Or were there other factors? One factor I would like to know is quite why the club seemed so keen to get Adam Ida when it would appear that Sidney van Hooijdonk was available and that Bojan Majowski might well have been available too. There are a lot of questions that need answered. I hope they get answered, but I unfortunately fear from 50 odd years of experience supporting Celtic they won't do. So just to finish off this wee video, which has been a wee bit looking at the past and a wee bit looking at the future, is just a quick preview of tomorrow's match against Aberdeen, 12:30 live on TV. We go into the match still missing our Asian Cup players. Their quarterfinals are today and tomorrow, and so it may be that we have our two Japanese and two South Koreans back by the middle of the week. After the Hibs match, it may be, if they're successful, that they'll be playing in the semis through the week, and then the final at the weekend. Unfortunately, as I'm sure you're all aware, Ryo Hatate was injured in Japan's last match, and the predictions are that he's going to be out until April with a recurrence of the calf injury that had been keeping him out prior to Christmas. And so, in a lot of ways, I really think it would have been better for Celtic and for Hatate had he not been fully fit around Christmas and New Year and declared unfit at the end of the year, so that we had him fully fit for after the mid-season break. However, that wasn't what things turned out to be. Japan called him up, and unfortunately, he's got injured again. So, going into the game against Aberdeen, a team that we have a very good record against. In the last 10 games, 9 wins, 1 draw, and 9 of those are wins in a row. It's now 8 years since Aberdeen beat us in Aberdeen. In the last 10 games, we've had 29 goals for, 6 against with 5 clean sheets. The last time we played in Aberdeen, it was a 3-1 win in a lovely sunny day in August. And of course, the last time we played Aberdeen at all, we won 6-0 at Celtic Park, which was possibly Celtic's best performance of the season in terms of everybody playing together, working together, and succeeding. And of course, we go into this match now with a run of 5 league matches in a row, all with wins. So the indicators are all very good. I fully expect Celtic will win tomorrow in Aberdeen. We'd be predicting probably a 2 or a 3-0 win. Aberdeen, of course, in a bit of a bad position, having changed their manager. Sometimes that does cause the players of the opposition to play that wee bit harder for the new manager. quite often there's a lot of disorganisation, confusion and problems, and I think Celtic and Aberdeen is a game that we should win. Their style suits our style, and they aren't one of the teams that has these banks of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 defenders. They do try and play quite open football, and I think we can take advantage of that. Predicting the team, I would go with Hart in goals, Ali Johnston at right back. Defence will be Navrocki and Scales. CCV yet again seems to be injured. Left back, I think we're probably going to be going for Barnaby again. I would love to see Mitchell Frame starting at left back, or playing Lagerbielke or Welsh beside Scales and moving Scales to left back. Midfield three, I think, picks itself nowadays. Bernardo McGregor and O'Reilly, and out wide, I think, Abada and Palmer, with Kyogo through the middle, although I wouldn't be too surprised to see Coon starting instead of Abada on the right. I think Kyogo will get 60, 70 minutes, and then we'll bring on Adam Ida at the end, and crossing fingers, Adam Ida gets a debut goal that gives him tons of confidence and gets our confidence and trust in him built up as well. So that finishes things off for today. Do apologise, a bit of a long video, maybe a wee bit ranty at times as well, but Celtic is a big thing in my life and has been for nearly 52 years, and so I do apologise if I've gone on a bit philosophical, etc. So, as always, happy to see comments, preferably polite, constructive, etc., as they always have been from Celtic fans in the comment section. If you are new to the channel and have enjoyed this sort of video, please do click that subscribe button, like button as well. And so for the moment, goodbye and hail, hail.